Well, hello everybody. Thank you for coming out. This is the faithful few that have made it over here. I think probably some people are hiding away from the weather behind their computer screens and watching from there. So we've had 3 longish days, really, of meetings, all in all. They've been good. I won't say always easy, but they have been good and supportive. And I'd just like to run through with you, first of all, really the whole of the last 3 days, because I think a lot of the work of the board is done in subcommittees, and so I want to give you a feeling of some of that as well. Our first meeting was really on Sunday afternoon, where the governance committee met. And the governance really talks about issues related to whether the board of trustees is working effectively, and they are, at this point in time, the closest link to what the president does and the president's evaluation. So we spent most of the time this time looking over materials that I brought back with me from a conference on governance in Florida, which really looked at the question, are we doing governance well? And if not, what are the things we could do to be doing things better? And that was a very interesting conversation. Several ideas emerged from that, and between now and June, I will be working with the chair and the vice chair to see if we want to make any adjustments to the way our governance structure works. One of the key ones of that would be to start having an executive committee, and which our board does not have. But we'll see where all those conversations get. It may kind of seem a little bit esoteric and out there, but actually really impacts the way that we do our business. So some of the conversations were good. Of course, that evening we had the faculty and staff awards nights. Thank you very much to all of you who came out. I think we had a record board attendance actually at that one. There were a lot of people from the board that came. Greatly, greatly appreciative of the evening, of meeting with those of you they were able to talk to. So I think that was a very good meeting event, and gives them confidence. Once they meet you, they see you, and it gives them confidence in the institution. So that was good. On Monday, we started off with an audit and risk management committee. And that group is really tasked with saying, what are the risks to Andrews University? What are the most critical risks to Andrews University? And do we have those under control? Right? Actually, it's a very important conversation. And that ranged from financial risk to risk of enrollment to risk of safety risks, IT risks, IT breaches, etc. So it was that kind of conversation. And a lot of work had been done by different groups on campus to put together that material. That's still a work in progress. But as I'll point out later, the board picked up on one of those items later on in the discussion. We then had a compensation committee, and the compensation committee at this point does very little other than say, over the last 12 months, have you operated within policy? So it's not a very strategic issue, and that was not a problem. Then we had what we call the combined meeting between the academic subcommittee and the finance committee. That was probably the most energetic of our conversations. We spent, as someone well put it in the board later, it's good to have those two groups together so the academics can understand when the finance people say you need to pull back your finances and control your finances, and the finance people need to understand that it's not always that easy from the academics. So I think that was a very good conversation to bring those two groups together. Look at some of the profiles of our finance, which I'll be giving you in a little while, and where we're going, and what we can do about that. And then those two groups split into 2 different sections, the finance and the academic, and continued. While that was meeting, there's a student group that also meets, Student Experience and Faith Development. They look very much at the Spiritual Master Plan, the results that we had of our recent spiritual survey, how we're responding to that, other issues that are critical to student life, management, and so on, and some of our policies in that area. So I think they had a very good meeting too. So that was Monday morning, and that really is the time when a lot of the real heavy conversations happen. And if they happen there, then you're likely to have a reasonably good and short and meeting on Tuesday morning, which is what happened. So the groups obviously did their work. In the afternoon, we have a seminary executive committee. Very good report in the seminary. They're seeing that's one of the places where the numbers are just keep moving up positively. So that was really good, and a lot of positive support from the group towards the seminary. The health and wellness, and then of course we had the Health and Wellness Center groundbreaking. That was a great event. I don't know how many of you were there to see that. It's the first time I've sat on, what was that thing called that I sat on actually? Caterpillar? Okay, well, anyway, they got me on the stepladder up there and sitting on there. It was a great feeling of power, by the way. You know, the sad thing was they didn't give me the keys. They didn't let me actually drive it. I was very sad about that. But maybe that'll be the next thing I'm able to do. So anyway, great groundbreaking service. People in from the community, President's Council, our architects, and I think just everyone felt very, very good about that and the fact that we're moving forward. And the weather kept us moving quickly to do the groundbreaking and come back inside for celebration. Right, that was Sunday, and then we moved on to today with the board. So I'll go through a little bit more detail on some of the things there, which may pick up on some other things we've already talked about. We have what we call consent items. Those are just like just very quick pass-through. Minutes, new appointments for faculty, staff, and administrative appointments, and then a compliance report. And the compliance report is, Lorena is the one that does a huge amount of work with that. And it really tries to capture every single issue of compliance that the campus is responsible for, from plant services to data issues to records issues and so on, and list them all, and whether we are actually keeping up with that. And we actually do a great job on the campus, thanks to the work of so many staff. That was our consent items. My report, I actually focused on this book here. It's called Top Strategic Issues for Boards, 2018 to 19. It's probably one of the most helpful books I've read for a long time, or it's not really a book, a little shorter than that. And it's by the Association of Governing Boards. And it tries to say, it basically says, as we look forward, what are the critical issues that every campus needs to be facing and looking at? And it breaks that down and talks about it. So I went through the 6 areas in here and tried to indicate how well, under each of those 6 areas, there were a number of different points they highlighted. And I tried to go through to talk about how effectively I thought we were doing this by giving a kind of minor grading scale to it. And the 6 areas are educational quality, and overall, generally, the indication there, I think, is that we really do pretty well. Financial stability, and that's where probably there are more what I put in the orange category, as in working towards but not quite there. And then maybe one red block, which is what is happening with discounts. The problem that we're having, which is very similar to pretty much every other institution. The discounts, there's a discount war almost out there, and discounts continue to rise, which really impacts your financial capability of working. So that was the second one. Freedom of speech and that interface between civility, responsibility, freedom of speech. Dwayne and a group has worked on a draft document in that area, so we are beginning to work on that. Already have some things in place. That was the third area. Innovation. Basically, this says, as we know, we've talked about it, that in the current environment, it is not business as normal. Higher education is not going to survive with business as normal. And whether that relates to the way we deliver programs, whether it relates to the way we have our business models for operations, in every area of higher education, really, the need for innovation is huge. And we are doing quite a lot of things in that area, but there's more we need to do moving forward. The fifth area is presidential leadership, and I'm not going to talk about that, because I read that and I thought, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be like. That's scary. And the last one was relevance, which is also huge. We're in an environment where, in the public sector, there is somewhat of a lack of confidence in higher education. And in the Adventist sector, there's also a sense of a lack of sense of, is Adventist education really important? So this question of how do you make yourself relevant and find the relevance and the edge to reach out is also very critical. So this I thought was a really good way of putting in front of the board a kind of roadmap of the conversations and the decisions that are critical to our future over the next few years. So that was really what my report was about. The Provost report really focused a lot on the conversations that have been happening in the academic area and the creativity that has and is happening across the campus between programs, in looking and saying there's a number of programs that we can retire because we're not filling them, decisions that have already been made by you in the different faculties, ways that different departments can connect in maybe new ways, new possibilities for the future, such as big data. What can we do, anything in that area? What can we do with health professions, such as occupational therapy? A number of different things like that. It was exactly what they wanted to hear, which really was, we are not just sitting there and saying we can't do anything. It was about saying we are recognizing that we need to continually be creative and thoughtful and thinking about new ways of being relevant and meeting our mission with the students that are wanting to come to us now. So that was the Provost report. The board education was taken by June Price, and that was very well received. June went through the spiritual master plan. She talked about, she had a nice little map. I don't know if you've all seen that map, but if not, you need to get it from Student Life. I don't have one here. That actually is drawn like a map and outlines all the things that are happening and available in a spiritual life on the campus. And then she also shared a little bit with the group. And if you haven't seen this already, there will be ways, I think this will be rolled out to you, to say, what did our students say about their own spiritual experience this year in a survey we did? What are we learning from that, and what are we going to do about what we learned? They shared that too. So that was very, very well received. I should have said this at the very beginning too, but one of our students took the devotional, Mikhail Weil, who is in social work, did a really, really splendid job, and really just one of our students. She is also the president of the Student Missions program, just a representative of many of our students who are so spiritual and so wanting to make a difference in the community around and from a spiritual perspective. She did a great job. Okay, so that was what we call the information items. Then we went to the committee reports and action items. One of the big things here was finance, both looking at where we are now and our budget for next year. So I'm going to summarize this very briefly, and the VP for Finance can jump up and tell me if I get this wrong. But as far as this year is concerned, we had originally budgeted for a gain of over 2 million. We overestimated in one area and underestimated in another area. The area we overestimated was in some of the new programs and new revenue streams we were hoping. Many of those are happening, but not at the speed with which we had put those in the budget. The other area where we kind of underestimated was what the discount rate would be. So those two features together result in the fact that probably our end-of-year figure is likely to be, before anything related to dairy or auxiliaries, about a gain of 700,000 as against our initial figure. The good news about that is this is the first year in 4 years that we will be above the waterline. So that is encouraging, even if it wasn't as dramatic a shift up as we had hoped. So if you look at the 5-year trend we started losing and going underwater about 4 or 5 years ago. So the worst was probably 3 years ago, where we were underwater by about 4 million by the end of the year. This last year, we started moving up a little bit, and we ended the year with a negative 2 million, having gone bottomed out and come up. And this year we should end even. So we are kind of making a shift of about 2 million a year in the right direction. It would be nice to already be at the end of this year so people could really have seen we actually had got there after 2 years. We still have a couple of months to go. And our projection for next year is that really, and we think this is realistic, is we've gone up 2 million, 2 million, and we're looking at another 2 million, basically just over 2 million increase for next year as we look at next year's budget. Inevitably, this is the biggest concern for the board, and I think the questions they asked us, both in the finance committees and then again on the board, is, okay, are your projections for next year real? Right? When it comes down to it, you know, we haven't met budget for several years because we've been anticipating revenue that hasn't happened. Our expenses are good. We manage our expenses really well, but we seem to be overestimating our income. Is it real? We have said that we believe it is real because we are downplaying a little bit of our possible new revenue next year to try and only include what we really think is certain. I think that's the best way of putting it. We never know. You never know until September hits whether we have got that balance right. I think it would be fair to say that some board members would have wished that we would be even more conservative in what we projected. But we tried to say, and I think they have accepted that, and others on the board would agree with that, that if you go too conservative, you potentially make cuts that you don't actually need to make. And that is very hard to justify in an environment that's already very tight. So I think we ended on a note of our feeling that, general feeling that we were heading in the right direction, a feeling that next year's budget, which is proposing a 2.5 eventually, actually, I think it is million gain, is realistic. I think people are working with us with that, okay? I won't say they're happy, but neither are they putting blame on us. They're actually walking that path with us of trying to work out what to do. One of the quotes I gave them out of this book, or two things I shared with them, one was on the financial stability. One was that last year, 2017, 71% of financial vice presidents around the country in universities felt that we were in a financial crisis when it came to higher education. That's a pretty high percentage. And Moody's has changed their projection on higher education environment from stable to negative on finance. So that shows that the struggles that we have been having, we are not alone. And I think the message from the board was, neither are they leaving us alone, that it is a joint issue. We're walking through this, and we're heading in the right direction. Our budget for next year is, as I think we have talked about some of this before, we are looking at a 2% increase in salaries. We are not putting up prices on room and board and accommodation for students. We are having an increase on tuition of 3%. And everything else kind of falls into place beyond that. With the adjustments we've already made to our budget, we are still short of meeting our goal by 700,000. And between now and June, we do need to come up with that 700,000. Because we cannot in good conscience come in with a budget that does not meet at least a 2.5 million expectation, recognizing, especially with the history of the last few years, that you put that in and then you've got to have somewhere to go if you don't quite get there, right? So, but hopefully that will be real, that will be there. So 700,000 is really the shortfall that we're still looking at between now and the summer. So if anybody you know somebody who wants to give us 700,000, just let us know. That would be great. So that was really our budget, our financial statement to date. We looked at capital, operating with a capital budget next year of 1.5 million for one more year, hoping the following year to push that up, because that is really not as much as we need to do everything we need to be doing. We looked at, in the subcommittee, but we weren't yet ready to take it to the board. We looked at our debt financing. Actually, that's one area where our finances are good. Our long-term debt is significantly below our peer group in what we have in long-term debt. And so as we're now building the wellness center and we're looking at cash flow, what do we do with the financing and getting that in place? We'll come back to the board in June or maybe through a teleconference before to make a decision on that. Other than that, we had a few nice donations that we had to talk to them about designation and those. So that was that was good news. And then finally, we got into the reports from the various committees. Compensation, I've mentioned, there's nothing really there to report. Academic programs talked about the programs that the different departments have said they will reduce. We recorded those. And we also voted through, and this was very important to the board, so I want to mention it to you. We voted through the names of the undergraduate religion faculty for recognition and endorsement by the church according to their own statement of delimitation of freedom. Put that in context for you. The General Conference has a statement or that they're wanting universities to respond to, or a process. The seminary was proactive and said, you know, we would rather do it as a delimitation ourselves because that is something that is acceptable within our environment and ATS, the accrediting body. And that is what they did, and the religion department have supported that with them. So that is something about all our campus now have signed off on that. And, you know, sometimes as academics we may feel we don't like that, but I had conference presidents afterwards saying to me, you've no idea how important this is, because just the fact that the faculty themselves have taken that decision. Whenever we hear these people say, oh, well, you know, the seminary or the religion department at Andrews, it's this and it's this and this, we can say, oh, but do you know? And they have a response to it, and it takes away some of that potential negativity. So I think so that was their view on that. And then the Student Experience and Faith Development Committee and the Governance Committee really only reported some of the events, the conversations in their committees. There were no actions taken in that area. One action was taken afterwards in the executive session, and that was a direct request from the board that its next meeting in June, that we have a presentation and conversation on safety. Safety in two areas. Safety from the point of view of campus safety in the case of some tragic event happening, and campus safety from the point of view of data breaches and the ITS side of it. So we will work with the Office of Campus Safety and also with ITS to have that conversation with them next time. We have a new board member. Some of you may know him, Joshua Pierre. He, I don't know what he graduated from here with. Anyway, he's a graduate of here. He's business, and he's now a lawyer. And he is very eager to be part of it. And as he pointed out, you know, this environment, even at the governing board level, they actually have a responsibility to make sure that the campus is really going through processes and protocols to make sure they're as safe as they possibly can be. So that was why they said that, and that was an action, and we will be doing that at our next meeting in June. Did I miss anything? Everyone okay? All right. Any questions? I had the lights blaring at me, so if you do, you're going to have to really wave at me because I can't see anyone in the back 2 rows. Yes, Marianne.
Question for perhaps you as well as Mr. Shaw. In considering the finances going forward this next year, how does the Michigan raise and minimum wage for student workers affect our overall budget? Because I know here on campus we rely very heavily on student assistants, graduate assistants, and so forth to carry forth our mission.
That is a legal requirement. It's written into the budget,
Right.
and it's something that we do. And we have an action to keep our regular employees a little above that rate.
Okay.
Right.
So that's part of
That
what we factor in.
is part of the adjustments and so on. I should also say that one of the things we also talked about in one of our slides was the fact that our priority must be to get ourselves to the 2.5 million position. We need that in the stability of the institution. But the next thing after that we want to do, while maintaining that 2.5 million, is to, our primary thing is to look at compensation. So that was something we shared with the board, that they were very comfortable with, and that was very important to do. Any other questions? All right, I guess that's it. Thank you very much for coming, and if you have a question you didn't want to voice it out there, I'm down here, you can come and ask me, and we've got a few other people down here who can ask questions as well. All right, thank you. Let's just close with a word of prayer, shall we? Our Lord and our God, we thank you for Andrews University. We thank you for all the students that we have here, all the potential, all the possibility. And I thank you too for the colleagues that are in this room and watching behind their screens or just not here today. And the passion they bring to this place, the commitment and the difference it makes to this campus by having each of them here. And Lord, as we move forward, we ask for your continued blessing and guidance. We have some difficult challenges that still remain ahead, but we are moving in a positive direction. And we thank you for that, and ask for your blessing as we continue to deal with the challenges ahead, and also the blessings ahead. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.